Located at 32 Southside Avenue, our purpose is to educate, feed, and nourish the people of Newnan through a sustainable community garden. We also have raised beds available for lease for beginner and experienced gardeners. Join us on most Saturdays between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. at 32 Southside Avenue, or visit our New Leaf Community Garden Facebook page to learn more.
Hi, this is Rashawn McDonald. This week on Money Making Conversation Masterclass, I am joined by award-winning entertainer Bobby Brown and his wife Alicia Etheridge Brown. They're executive producers on A&E's networks, Bobby Brown and Bobby Brown, Every Little Step. I will also be joined by executive chef Liz Rogers, the founder of Creamalicious, the only black-owned, nationally distributed ice cream brand. Don't miss Money Making Conversation with me, Rashawn McDonald, every weekend, or go to moneymakingconversation.com and hear all of my great interviews.
We are strong and we'll get through this together, but these are stressful times. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, and know that you are not alone. Visit wearebroadcasters.com/hope, furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Welcome to Connecting Hearts. Connecting hearts of women to resources, information, and to one another. Presented by Creative Heart Studios, 18 Perry Street and Newnan. Now here's your host, Margie Conway.
Good morning. This is Margie Conway. I'm the Joy Coordinator for the Creative Heart Studios, and this is the Connecting Hearts Network podcast. We've been bringing you a lot of women that has things that you can use, for local information and far away, because this broadcast is reaching people we are just learning that are nowhere around here. And it's got information that you can use to help you and your family flourish and do a little bit better in every area of your life. Linda Kirkpatrick is our guest today. She has been on our broadcast before. She was one that we pre-recorded, and she was one of the very first that we recorded. And I enjoyed talking to her. I always enjoy when Linda comes in. My quick introduction to Linda is she's who I want to be when I grow up. And then she probably looks at me and says, honey, you're almost my age, so I don't know what you're talking about. But she is retired now, and she does more than I do when I'm not retired. Hi, Linda. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for asking me. And I'm going to start off with a quote from Anne Frank. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world.
Absolutely.
And if a lot of you don't know who Anne Frank is, please look her up. She was a child of the Holocaust, locked in an attic, and she loved to write, and she has beautiful quotes and a beautiful story. But I'm here to talk about Family Patterns Matter, and that quote tells what we want to do. We're here to improve the lives of our youth and families in our community. Family Patterns Matter. Our tagline is Mending Hearts in Life and Family. Our sole purpose is we want to talk to the youth. We want to hear what they have to say. In light of what happened last week, we know our kids struggle. We're teaching them resilience. I'm not sure how those kids are coping and their families with what happened, but we're hoping they do have some good coping skills to get them through it. We know God can get them through it, and we hope that that's who they're relying on. Our purpose is to support youth so that they can become who they were meant to be. They are defined by their potential and not their circumstances, because a lot of kids, people look at who they are, the way they dress, who their family is, where they come from, and then what happens? They're left out, they're left behind. They're bullied.
Right.
And bullying is one of the things that our kids talk about, and we have a program that addresses that, and we are going to be getting it into the schools hopefully this next fall. Our vision is that every young person in our community has the resources and opportunities to reach their full potential. And we do that by bringing in speakers, bringing in teamwork. We just planted a vegetable garden. They are taking care of it. They're going to harvest it. Yeah. And then we're going to eat it. So they're going to learn about nutritious food. There's just so much that our kids want to know about that oftentimes their parents don't have time to talk to them about it. Right. So we're there, and if it's appropriate, we try to give them some pointers on how to move through life. One of the most, I'm going to say, love programs that we have is our free guitar. And we offer that on the second Thursday that we meet in the month, and the kids love it. And we're hoping that we will get funding so that those that complete it will get their very own guitar.
Oh, that will be wonderful.
Yeah. They just dive right in and they love it. So
music is healing in so many ways.
Well, it is. And one of the other things we're looking at, we have a little girl who can play the piano, and she can play Chopin and all of that, and we're hoping to maybe have a little event where she plays the piano and the kids play the guitar, so that's something coming in the future.
So Linda offers opportunities to these kids who might not get them to do extra things, to do enrichment things for them, that gives them other ideas of directions they can go and solutions they can find. And one thing that she mentioned that is so important is teaching them resilience. Teaching them that no matter what's going on, you can come out of it and you can rise above it and do the best that you can. That's why I love your name, Family Patterns Matter, because we do have patterns in our families that reaches these kids, and a lot of times you see the adults acting out and you don't get to the kids. Right. And I know you and I have talked about that, and you've said you've had a tender spot for those kids that were suffering through everything else, even when we had to concentrate on what the adults were going through.
Right. Because we know if the home isn't healthy, our kids return to that home, so they have to have the skills to work through it and possibly even change something that's happening within their home life with their parents or their guardian. We serve all kinds of children, very diverse group, grandparents raising grandchildren, children from ages 6 to 17. They come in, they love it. We do art. We know that art is very important because kids can express themselves in their artwork. We also do journaling. If they're struggling in school, we bring a tutor in, and we also have mentors. We just want them to have everything they need to become who they were meant to be.
Right, and that's very good that you do that. We know, like we mentioned, music is healing to the kids, being expressive through the journaling and the art, and sometimes when you can't say the words of what's bothering you, you can express it in other mediums. That's important to the kids to be able to do that.
I'm trying to think. We were founded in 2013, and here it is, 2022. We're still going strong. We're very small, but we love what we do. All of our volunteers and our board members are vested in making these lives better, making our community better, because if we didn't collaborate with community people that have the resources that we don't have, our families would not have the resources they need to create a healthy family.
You're right. When you do these activities, I know you do them every other Thursday, right? Sometimes the parents come and get involved, and that's good for them to be able to see the kids doing this. Sometimes the parents need to learn those things themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they didn't have that opportunity growing up. I ran a large daycare center for about 3 years, and the stories for those kids coming from their homes were, you know, and we would see firsthand a lot of it. It was heartbreaking. So you do what you can to support the kids as you go through that.
Right. And we know that we have to include the family.
Right.
We have to include the parents. We have to include the school. The other thing is there's this big push on mental health. I personally don't like the words mental health. I wish there was another word for it, but we do know that our kids are struggling, and a lot of them are depressed. A lot of them isolate themselves. Some of them self-harm. And we want to give them the support, know that we care about them. We want to see them. We hope and look for them every time we have the opportunity to visit with them. We want them to be able to call us if they need us. Of course, their parents have to know. We've also told them that if they want to tell us something in confidence, they can, unless it's to harm themselves or somebody else. And that's when we would have to report it. a lot of our kids have gotten into trouble in school. So we try to talk about that and figure out, well, what happened? Well, most of the time it's bullying that has happened.
Yes.
And that's what's gotten them into trouble.
Yes.
Dropping out of school, they just don't have the encouragement often from their family to say, okay, it's okay if you get a C, and you don't have to be an A student. And we tell our kids that, you know what, do the best you can.
That was a hard lesson I learned, because I was always an overachiever, and I expected my kids who were capable of it to be overachievers also, but they didn't. And one reason my son Chris didn't want to do that was because of bullying. Yeah. I mean, he was a victim of some big bullying. As a matter of fact, he even got jumped once or twice.
Oh, no.
And that changed his behavior. And hi, Chris, you're on the broadcast again this week, too. He was my first, and he was the one I learned a lot from. He, when we moved to Coweta County, he was this little bitty skinny kid that wore plaid shirts and listened to country music and was super smart. He was the nerdy one that would tell me to call the police on somebody that offered him a cigarette. And then he was bullied at school, and there was these same guys, and he didn't tell anybody about it, but he told me he needed to come out of gifted, and I'm like, no. And he's, yeah, and so eventually, because I resisted, he flunked out on purpose because he didn't want to be in there. And then I found out he was being bullied about it. And part of it is, you know, I was a dedicated mom, but I was working a lot, and he didn't tell me those things. Those same guys that had been bullying him jumped him behind the trailers one night, one afternoon at school. And we ended up, you know, in a rush to the hospital, and him having concussions, worried about brain damage, and just not doing well at all. And these were three big kids that already had a record, and they tried to go, when we had to go to court about it, they tried to say he started it.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring that out is because the changes in this little bitty nerdy kid who was smart and doing all these things, he went from that to wearing his leather jackets and his chain wallets, and he went to live with his dad for a while, and one time he showed up and he had a hat on, and I'm like, well, it's hot, why don't you take the hat off? And he had a multicolored mohawk, and he pierced his nose. And one Easter weekend, I had him dressing up like the Easter Bunny at the daycare center. I was in a hurry. He had come in camping from his buddies because he was with me at that time. And he had a Band-Aid on his eye. And I kept, Chris, are you okay? And he's, yeah, but, you know, I was in a hurry. And we rushed through our day. So at the end of the day, he was still fiddling with that Band-Aid. And I was like, you need to take that off and let's see if there's an infection. And he pulls it off, and they had stuck safety pins through their eyebrows.
No.
And I just teared up. And he's like, Mom, I'm going to take it out. I didn't want it anyway, but I didn't want them to say anything. He said, I'm going to tell my mom maybe take it out. So I'm sure none of them are listening at this point. But he went from mainstream on one, you know, straight, completely nerdy to the type of person I used to would walk across the street to avoid. Yeah.
Well, and that's what happens to our kids because they want to fit in.
Right.
So they find a place to fit in. That may not be healthy.
Right.
So that's why we have our Youth in Action, because all the kids fit in there. They all care about each other. Nobody is looked at in a funny way or laughed at if they say something that may not be what the group wanted to hear. And, you know, we just want it to be a safe, fun, friendly environment for the children and kids to come. Our kids are just, they're incredible. They're incredible. They're incredible to watch how they've grown.
Right.
I mean, I have one little girl that I had since the 4th grade, and she's a sophomore in high school now. So it is long term for a lot of them. We listen to them and hear what they have to say, and then say, okay, let's talk about it. What do you think should happen?
Right.
And because even though I have a degree in counseling, I'm not going to counsel these kids and tell them what to do.
Right.
The one thing that I did learn from my counseling is never tell somebody what they should or shouldn't do. Listen to them and let them figure it out. Or give a story that has happened in your life and let them know, well, this is what happened to me and this is how I handled it. But Because what if something happened if you told somebody to do something?
Right,
Yeah.
and that's what I've had to be learning over the last couple of years, because up until the last several years, I had no problem telling everybody exactly what they should do. And and since I knew I was right, I was not worried about it. But I have learned, and through counseling training, that, you know, you do share your stories and you do help them come to their own conclusion to find out what's wrong and what their solutions can be.
Right.
So that's a hard lesson for us to learn, and those of us who are fixers and want to fix everybody has to realize that when we try to fix them, we're just putting a Band-Aid on it, that the solution, they have to come to themselves and
they
make
absolutely
those choices.
do.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things that they have to learn is how important graduating from high school is.
Right.
Because if you graduate from high school, people say that you are not a quitter. Now, also, we work with kids to get their GED. And if they get their GED, they're not a quitter.
Right.
And that's what's important. And we look for on-the-job training, technical school, that kind of thing. We don't leave any stone unturned when we're working with our kids. I'm going to give you a brief story. We had one young man who was a teenage father. He dropped out of school. He was living off of the Court Square, and he walked to the CEC to get his GED, and then he walked to work. And it was a long way for him, and we thought, well, how can we help him? Well, we partnered, and we bought him a bicycle and a bike helmet.
Yes.
He got his GED, he got a full-time job, and that's a success.
Right, and sometimes all they need is just a little support to know that somebody's there. Let's talk about some strategies parents can do at home when they're trying to support them children, because, you know, we get busy, we run around, we don't really think, we dictate to our children what to do and how to do it, and you've said it several times, the key thing is to make time to sit and listen to them.
Well, that is the most important thing, because if you come home from work and you're tired, if you're a single mom, all you want to do is get dinner on the table, ask them, have you done your homework? Most of the time they're going to tell you yes. And then get them in the shower and get them into bed. And then the routine starts the next day. It's just over and over and over again. So the most important thing I tell our parents is just take 10 minutes. That's the way to start. 10 minutes to listen, because one of the things our kids told us was, adults don't listen to us. Our parents don't listen to us. If I tell my mom or dad something happened at school, they brush it off and say, well, that's just your age, that's just the behavior. So if our parents will take the time to listen, that's the best strategy to start with. And then actively listen.
Right.
Actively listen, and show them by example. And if you have a certain routine that you have, break it a little bit to include them. Say, hey, would you like to help me cook dinner?
Right.
Do you want to help me go to the grocery store? Or, anything like that. Just include them in your conversations and make them know you care about what happened to them at school, or if it's summer, what happened at summer. And there's lots of fun summer things to do, and that's another podcast.
I don't know. We might hit on that, because I have a 13-year-old granddaughter for the majority of the summer.
Well, there's just lots.
Yeah. Well, she's been coming every weekend for quite a while, and she's here for most of the summer. And her question was, her papa's question was, are you going home at all? And she said, well, I would, but they've got so much going on, so she's staying at my house.
Well, you know what? And that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. If it was not for my grandmother while I was growing up, I don't think I would have made it. And so even when I get irritated at her, I'm like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, well, we look at the free things. Right. Because a lot of our families are low income. Right. And Family Patterns Matter has a certain fund of money. But if we can get transportation, if anybody out there has a bus or a van and are willing to drive our kids, We want to take them to not the zoo in Atlanta, but I understand there's one in, I think, Hogansville.
I've heard about that.
And there's another animal rescue place, and then there's also they're doing free days in Atlanta at things like the museum
Right.
and all of that. I don't know if we could get our kids in, but I am very good at calling and saying, hey, this is who we are. Could we bring 10 kids up
Right.
there for free? And the other thing is volunteering. We love peer volunteers that come in and work with our kids. A lot of kids love to read, love art. We're going to bring Caring Paws in, so the kids are going to be reading to the dogs. But
Okay.
we would love kids to volunteer with us, and we do community service. I'm thinking about getting the kids into the Lynch Park pool, the libraries.
I did find the libraries have teen programs on Thursday afternoons at 2 starting next week. It's at 2:30 actually.
Well, the Carnegie has all
Yeah,
kinds.
that's the Carnegie. I found that because I was looking at all these other things to do, and there's a baking camp, and it's very expensive, and her parents would pay for it, but she already knows that because she's an avid baker and she's an artist, but she's kind of quiet until she gets to know you.
Well, see, those are things she could come and teach our kids.
And I was also thinking, since my Thursday night group will not be happening this summer, maybe I can try to bring her over there to do that.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
The state park is another place I'd like to go.
Right.
I would actually like to do an overnight at the state park, but right now I'm just not sure because we'd probably have to have some parents stay with us and
Right.
that sort of thing. And of course, we always sign a consent form.
Yes.
Release of liability, but there's so many things that I'm not thinking of, but I know our kids would love. One thing that we do is and I'm trying to think of what it is. It's the board that you design, that what you want to do and what
Vision
you
board.
Vision board.
Yes,
Thank you.
vision board.
We have already done one vision board, and we're going to do another one to see if it's changed.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
And we talked about, like I said, the kids planted the garden and they're taking care of it. We're hoping to bring maybe, go to the movies.
Right.
Just whatever we can. We're going to ask the kids, of course, what is you want to do that's not out of,
But like Haley, if I ask her, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I said, well, if you don't know, how do I know? So I did find that series that's going to be at the Carnegie at 2:30 again for teenagers. And I keep saying that because she needs to make some friends up here.
Yes,
because with her being up
absolutely.
here every weekend through the school year, mostly she misses out on things her
Yes.
friends are doing. So she needs to make friends up here to do things with instead of just me. Even though I'm awesome and cool, she needs somebody her age.
Yes, she does. She needs somebody to talk to.
Yes,
you
and
know.
the Wadsworth, is it Wadsworth? Yeah.
Wadsworth, yes.
Yes, they have Monday movies that they're going to start next
Oh,
week.
that's
At
awesome.
10:30, they're going to have free movie and free popcorn. You bring your own drink.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I
That's
think
awesome.
next week's in Cotto. And I will tell you from counseling and coaching perspective, I think Encanto is one of the best movies that you can watch to use
What
for an
day is that
example.
again?
Mondays
Every Monday.
at 10:30.
At 10:30.
Yeah.
That's good to know. That's good to know because I will definitely talk to our families about that
Yeah.
and getting their kids there. I'm just going to say what our mission is.
Yes,
Our mission states improving the next generation for a better tomorrow.
that's good.
Yeah, and we just believe that all kids are unique and no one has the right to tell them any different.
Right.
So I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. We're good.
Okay.
We still have at least 9 minutes or so.
Okay.
That's one thing. I teach the older kids at church on Wednesday nights, and through the month of June, that's what we're working on is their value and their identity. Actually, our whole Bible school that we're actually doing every Sunday this month is about their value and the fact that they're treasured. So those are the things we're working to teach these kids because they don't always get it, you know?
No. No.
It's rough for a lot of people to figure that out. And I've mentioned when I've grown up around here on this podcast many, many times. And if it was not, first of all, my grandmother was a saving grace, but second of all, she was also the career woman and busy with everybody else. But if it had not been for the church and the school that I went to, they put me in a private Christian school to get the best education. And I had to go to church to be in that school, so I was a bus kid, because the only time anybody in my family went to church is if I was in the play, so I was always in the play. And I'm not kidding you, I'm an overachiever. I was Little Red Riding Hood, I was in the chorus, I won the spelling bee for the county, and that's because when I did those things, my family would come together, and they weren't fighting and arguing and yelling, and everybody was at church or, where they needed to be. And so church and school became my sanctuary. Yeah. And if it had not been for some of those teachers and those leaders that invested in me then, I don't know where I would be now. Yeah. I mean, like we've said, I know God is in control of everything, and He has His reasons, and He takes really good care of people, especially me. I'm convinced I'm His favorite. And but if it hadn't been those people investing as I was growing up, I wouldn't have had some of the opportunities I had and some of the things I was able to do. And, I would not have been stable, on solid ground. And that is what we get when we have Christ in our lives. And I would not have had any solid ground under me, because both sides of my family was very erratic. Mm-hmm. And God knew what He was doing. I was an only child. Wow. So pretty much an only cousin too. But it's that has what's held me through it, because if I do start sharing my story from the beginning, people are like, how are you still standing? Well, let me tell you about the one that holds me up and walks in my right hand. And I've done that with kids, with the kids at church. Before I started sharing anything with anybody else, I taught middle school Sunday school for like 15 years. And we had some kids come through there that we knew were having some difficulties that I had been through. And so I started sharing my story a little bit at a time, my dad or my mom. And here's how it was and they would say, you came through that? Mm-hmm. You want me to tell you how I made it through that?
Well, when we look at, now when I know I'm a lot older than you, and I was a child of the 60s, and, a teenager in the 60s, let's say. The world was so different then.
It was.
And I look at when my children were young and growing up, they played tag in the cul-de-sac. Right. They rode their bikes through the neighborhood. They had a fort behind our house that they called Camp Arrowhead, and the neighbors looked after the children, and there was no fear.
Right.
And now our kids can't even go outside and ride their bikes.
You're absolutely right.
They have to be afraid of everything, and obviously now a lot of them are going to be afraid to go to school, and it breaks my heart. I know God is in control.
Right.
I have things that I pray for every day, and sometimes I think, well, is He going to answer that prayer? And you know what? Then I see it happen. And
You're right.
And I say, I get it. It's in your time, God. I'll just keep praying the prayer. And I have 7 children, and each one of them is different.
You got that right.
We moved here in 1979 from the state of California, which totally different. And we adapted. And we love it here, except for this hot, sticky summers. But it's...
I don't know. The one time I went to California, it was January, and it was hot then. It wasn't sticky, though, because they don't have the same humidity.
It's a different heat. Right. And you don't have the seasons like you have here. But, our kids have all prospered here. They have all done well. They all found their niche, and that's what we want, again, for our kids. That's why we're a place for all the kids to come, and all the kids can fit in and make friends and have friends that they can go to the movie at 10:30 on Monday with. Meet them there and have popcorn. or come to the meeting and say, hey, you know, I'm glad to see you again. Because one of the things you talked about, teaching them their value, we're talking about gratitude and value at our meeting.
That's
you know?
the two important things, I think, in life that adults need to learn, not just children. So if we can instill that in children while they're young, then there's no limit to what they can do.
The old saying, they're the ones that are going to be in charge.
Right.
And we need to give them what we've learned and also learn from them.
That's
because
true.
they have a lot to say. And sometimes it's scary what they say.
You're right.
But we listen to it and take it to heart. That's the most important thing. And I just the people that I meet, I mean, when I go places that I don't want to go, I know I've been pushed there by God, and I always meet somebody that is incredible that I needed to meet, and I'm thinking, wow.
I've been tied up, and you know, we've been doing Armor of God Bible study by Priscilla Shire and talking about the fiery darts and all these things that Satan tries to slow you down when you head in the right direction. And I was going out and meeting people, and God was giving me all these God appointments during the day, and I was enjoying it so much. And then I've had 2 family things I've had to take time off to deal with, plus I was sick for a week. And I'm like, and as you're saying that, I'm like, you know, and I knew that was darts coming from Satan to slow me down, but I didn't have any choice but to slow down during part of it. But I miss, you know, being able to be out there and having those experiences.
Well, 2 years ago, I became very, very ill. I almost died. If it hadn't been for my primary care, shout out for Dr. Sammer Blackman, I would have been dead. She rushed me to the hospital, and they said if you'd have been any longer.
Oh, no.
And I couldn't do any of the work that I'm doing. And it was sad, but I had to heal. And I think sometimes, and I know God doesn't make you sick. I know that. But sometimes you just have to have that wake-up call. Slow down.
Well, I've got a broken foot with a lot of metal in it here that told me last year I needed to slow down. So
it's hard for us.
I had to cut some stuff out of it. But then I find myself trying to pull other things in, and I was like, wait a minute, that's not it. And so God and I have had a conversation lately on what things I needed to focus on and the few I needed to let go. All right.
I say
you can, and then I'm going to share one about you.
I'm going to end this with a Martin Luther King quote.
Okay. Our lives begin to end the day we are silent about things that matter. You're right.
I mean, I love that quote.
Yeah.
Those 2 quotes, the one at the beginning and the one at the end, were my favorite.
Well, I can tell you one thing about the quote from Martin Luther King. I am never silent. I am going to speak up about it all.
Boy, you and me both. Sometimes it gets me in trouble.
Yeah, sometimes it does. But I tell you what, we love to see Linda coming out our door. And you know another quote, and I can't even tell you who said it now, but it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes,
and
it does.
We need to come around our children, support them, be there to listen for them, be there to help the single moms and the grandparents raising the kids, the ones that have special needs kids, just the different things. People need our support. So just like I usually tell you, you never know what the person next to you is going through. So just be kind, give some grace to one another, be available if they need somebody just to listen. That makes a big difference all the time.
You never know what you're going to learn.
That's it. You can find Linda at familypatternsmatter.org.
Correct.
And she is on Facebook. She posts the great things those kids do. And as always, you can catch me down on Perry Street. You just open those doors up and yell for Margie, and I'm going to walk out. Probably. If not, Dana will tell you when I'll be there. We'll see you next week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Connecting Hearts of women to resources, information, and to one another. Presented by Creative Heart Studios, 18 Perry Street, here in Newnan. 404-528-8461. Until next time, have a wonderful day. WQEE